Well, good afternoon. Thank you all for joining us here. We appreciate little notice of your attendance. While some are asking where there can be funds found to fund core government needs in Oklahoma, one simple answer is ending corporate welfare payments to the corporate wind industry. If we don't do something truly meaningful this session, not next session, another $70 million is literally going to be gone with the wind. And that $70 million could have gone towards core government functions. Currently, per kilowatt hour of electricity produced, $70 million is the refundable tax credit that corporate wind industry receives as a check in the mail from Oklahoma taxpayers, and that is after that industry has their entire income tax liability written down to zero. After they pay no income taxes, we cut them a $70 million check in the mail, preferential treatment of a few at the expense of the many. There's a 10-year payout still required, and that $70 million per year will not stop until 2027. Oklahoma is on the hook to pay out to foreign industrial wind somewhere between $500 to $750 million over the next decade. I want to reiterate, according to the Tax Commission, over the next 10 years, the Oklahoma taxpayer will be paying, after offsetting their entire income tax liability, a $500 to $750 million payment to mostly out-of-state and foreign wind stockholders, shareholders. 93% of that $500 to $750 million Oklahoma's going to pay out goes to out-of-state and foreign interests. Checks in the mail to Italy, checks in the mail to Spain, foreign interest. They don't care about the conditions of Oklahoma classrooms, conditions of our infrastructure, roads and bridges, but they do care about their $70 million per year annual corporate welfare payment. There's limited opportunity while teachers are at the Capitol to overtake the influence of the approximately 50 industrial wind lobbyists who are being paid. Again, 93% of the payout goes to foreign and out-of-state interests. They're being paid to make sure that their interest is protected. And with teachers at the Capitol, it's our hope that they can overcome that influence. Don't buy the sales pitch that the industry won't continue to locate here without such a subsidy. Don't forget they also, in addition to the per kilowatt hour tax subsidy they receive from the state of Oklahoma, they also get a 2.3% kilowatt hour of federal tax credit payment from the federal taxpayer. The industry will continue to locate here. Oklahoma is, after all, the state where the wind comes sweeping down the plains. Let's talk about what this industry is not paying. The wind industry does not pay income tax, personal income tax. They don't pay corporate tax. They don't pay sales tax. The industry only pays a portion of their ad valorem property tax liability. And you'll hear a lot of discussion about this. Well, they pay a lot of ad valorem. Let me give you the facts according to the Tax Commission. 80% of all property taxes paid last year were paid by you, the taxpayer, Oklahomans. 80% of all this property tax that you keep hearing talked about, 150 spread out over the last many years, its average is about $13 million a year. But 80% of the tax liability that they want to tout through the ad valorem manufacturing exemption, taxpayers are paying their property tax bill. In fact, there were 13 counties last year that 100% of their property tax was paid for by you, Oklahomans, the taxpayer, through the ad valorem reimbursement fund. So we have a plan, Senator Dahm and I, we do have a plan. You're going to hear plans that are going to go towards a tax increase for the industry that requires a 75% vote. The plan you're going to hear from Senator Dahm and I today requires a 50% vote. It is doable. Do not be persuaded to go down the path of a new tax increase that requires a 75% vote when the simple solution is a 51% majority vote. Today, Senate Bill 888 will be heard in the House Committee of Appropriations and Budget, and it's a similar attempt at what we tried on the floor Friday. It's a reform of that full $70 million corporate welfare payment. It only takes a 51% vote to pass. Representative Jeff Cootie will introduce an amendment on that bill that will take what was an ethanol tax credit repeal that we worked on and passed out of the Senate It only saves it saves 1.3. Not only it saves 1.3 million, but Representative Coody and I have discussed it, and the opportunity cost of $70 million a year is greater than 1.3. And Representative Coody will put an amendment on that bill to get rid of the refundability characteristic on this full $70 million taxpayer payout. With that, I'm going to yield to Senator Dahm. I do want to show this graphic as I exit the podium. That's the out-of-state foreign interest ownership. That is the current ownership. That is who is receiving that $70 million per year corporate welfare payment. Let me flip that back up so if anybody didn't get it can see it again. That's the statistics on where the monies are going.
Please, all of us just hold it for 5 6 seconds.
And with that, I'm going to yield to Senator Nathan Dahm.
Thank you, Senator Brecheen, and thank you all for being here today. One thing I want to clarify and emphasize: we are not anti-wind. We are not anti-alternative energy. We are not fighting this because it is one specific industry over another industry. We are doing this because we believe that there are better ways to fund our core functions of government instead of continually raising taxes. That is our goal. That is our attempt in this. As Senator Brecheen pointed out, there are multiple tax credits that the wind industry will be able to continue to receive even if this bill goes forward. They will still have their ad valorem reimbursements. They will still have their federal tax credit. They will still be able to keep this tax credit to bring their income tax liability down to zero. This just removes the refundability aspect of it. Something that was put in a few years ago when this tax credit was first enacted, it did not have the refundability component. So for those that are saying we're changing our word, this tax credit has been changed multiple times, multiple reiterations throughout the years. This is not the same tax credit that was first put into effect to try to attract the wind industry. These out-of-state companies are still welcome to do business here in the state of Oklahoma. The in-state companies are welcome to do business here in the state of Oklahoma. But we need to realize that the state legislature in the past few weeks and months has raised taxes on oil and gas, has raised taxes on everyone at the gas pump, has raised taxes on those who consume tobacco. They've raised taxes on pretty much everyone here in the state of Oklahoma. And now there's a proposal to once again raise taxes on the wind industry that most likely will just be fed into our utility rates to see an increased cost to the taxpayer, the consumer, instead of doing substantial reforms. So that's what we're wanting to attempt with this is a substantial reform. We do want to clarify a few things with this. There are other wind proposals out there. One of them will be a new tax, essentially a gross production tax on wind. There's also some capping measures that are put out there. There's a soft cap and a hard cap. They're talking about a soft cap, which might be $35 million, meaning that instead of paying the full $70 million every year to these wind industries, we'll pay $35 million until we pay off the debt. So we're essentially kicking the can down the road, paying $35 million a year until that happens. If we do a hard cap, that would be a better method. If we cut it off at $35 million, that means those companies that would be entitled under the current law to $70 million, they would have to take a proportionate rate to get it down to that $35 million. It would basically cut their credit in half by doing that. So there are multiple options, multiple proposals being put out there, but we believe that the refundability aspect is the best aspect because it is the fairest aspect for the consumer, the taxpayer. It's not right that we are raising everybody else's taxes while supplementing and paying corporate welfare to these wind industries to the tune of $70 million a year. This doesn't eliminate their tax credit. It just says the state of Oklahoma is no longer going to pay you to do business here in the state. Again, we are not anti-wind. We want alternative energies. We want business here in the state of Oklahoma. But if you cannot operate your business by getting a federal tax credit, by getting your property taxes paid by the people of the state of Oklahoma, by zeroing out your income tax business and getting a subsidy to the tune of $70 million from the taxpayers of Oklahoma, maybe you need to revisit your business model. That is not what Oklahoma should be in the business of doing when we should be actually funding the core functions of government. Senator Brecheen has Senate Bill 888. It's over on the House side. It's going to be brought up, as he mentioned, in the Appropriations and Budget Committee today, this afternoon. So we've been talking to educators. It's going to be at 4 o'clock, encouraging the members of the House A and B Committee to vote in favor of that amendment. I have been working with Senate staff. I have filed a bill. It should be going through the process right now. in special session, since we are still in the second special session. I believe the bill number will be Senate Bill 6, but it is still going through the process. But we should have Senate Bill 6XX that will be on the Senate side. So theoretically, if the House were to accept this amendment in committee today, run it on their floor on Wednesday, send it over to the Senate, we could have this resolution passed by Thursday that the monies would go to education. Senate Bill 66XX, again, all savings from those monies would go to education. We are trying to come up with a solution. We are trying to use these monies rather than paying these corporate interests to stay here and do business in the state. We are hoping that those monies will go to their core function of government instead. That is our intent. That is our goal. That's what we are trying to accomplish through this today. So that kind of gives you a good summary. Again, Senate Bill 888 up today on House A and B Committee. Senate Bill 6XX will be on the Senate side should the Senate choose to move forward with this. So we are giving multiple options for this to go forward. Final action concerns?
What is the
questions?
Senator Dahm, you were talking about education, and obviously that's the pregnant elephant in the building. So what does the dollar amount look like for education?
So in fiscal year 2020, I believe it would be 9.3, I think it was, and 7 million the first year, and then thereafter it would be 70. Is it 70.3 then?
70.
It's over 70 million each year thereafter. For 10 years. Go ahead, Senator Brecheen.
It is, according to the Tax Commission, we're on a trend right now to increase it $5 million a year until the climax. Remember, we're going to make this payment until 2027, so we're trending about a $5 million increase every year, and so it's somewhere between, for this year, 75 to $100 million is what we'll pay out. So right now, we're paying 2016, fully paying off the 2016 liability. That was $70 million. They're a year and a half behind because they file an extension and submit the receipts in October. So there's some delay. We had to do this prospectively. You have to avoid a lawsuit. This is at the head of the calendar year, January 1 of 2018. We cut this tax credit off. We will reap the benefits, and we can avoid a lawsuit. And so I wish we could put the money in immediately, but the greater issue is that $500 to $750 million liability that we're on the hook for. We must stop it now.
So,
and the 500 to 700 million liability, not only will it no longer be a liability, that's money that will go to education over the next decade.
Fiscal year 2020, the figure is 7 million even. 7 million even.
So for the 20 budget, it would be approximately $7 million. For 21, it'd be $70 million.
70. Okay.
Would this revert back to a transferable tax credit? It used to be a transferable.
No. This is, here's the interesting thing. We went from transferability to refundability. Senator Mike Mazie can be credited with moving us towards a better direction. What we've not addressed is there are two corporate entities that receive a refundable tax credit. Coal at $5 million a year. I run bills on that one with no success. But the lion's share of the two corporate entities that are left with a refundable tax credit, zero emissions at $70 million a year is the lion's share. And so I'm for tackling both. But when we're looking at the sizable dollar figure from $500 to $750 million we're going to pay over the next 10 years, this is the one. This is the low-hanging fruit. And let me speak to germaneness. Some will say, well, Senator Brecheen, you and Senator Dahm and others supported moving this amendment on the floor last Friday. That's true, we did. To bring this to the awareness of the average Oklahoman. I had hoped that we'd been successful. Germaneness, we know it is for 888, Senate Bill 888. We've already run all those traps. Representative Cootie and I did a couple weeks ago. Some will say final action has taken place and you can't bring this subject up again. And according to Senate rules, and I'm going to yield to someone that's more pronounced in Senate rules, I want to make sure everyone understands if that is brought up, that we can't bring this back up. There's an easy solution for that, and I'll yield to Senator Dahm.
Senate rules do allow if a bill or an amendment fails, that is generally termed as final action, meaning that language or similar language cannot be brought back up. However, the Senate rules does have a provision in that the pro tem of the Senate can waive final action at any time on any measure. So if the House were to move forward on this and send it back to the Senate, the pro tem could waive the final action rule and send it back to us as the Senate to hear it.
51% vote.
Or no vote. Oh, sorry, the vote on the bill is a 51% vote, but there's no vote requirement to actually, it's not suspending the rules or anything, it's within the rules that the pro tem can actually waive the final action provision. Or if the Senate decides to move forward on the bill that I have filed in special session, he can waive that final action rule right now, and the Senate can proceed forward in special session, because we are still in special session, with this bill, and we can have two vehicles moving forward. So some will say, well, the amendments failed on the floor. That is true, but we do have these other vehicles, and the Senate rules do speak to allowing vehicles to move forward even if they have previously failed.
Do you have a commitment from the pro tem to do that? Go ahead.
There is no commitment from the pro tem or Senate leadership to move forward on these bills. During the debates last Friday, the floor leader did say that we would be doing something on wind. We know that there are ongoing negotiations between the House and the Senate and even the wind industry as well. We feel that this is the best option for the taxpayers, the people of the state of Oklahoma, is to eliminate the refundability that is only available for these two industries, wind and coal. We feel that that would be a better way to move over towards a traditional tax credit, and this would generate more money than the other proposals that are being shopped around.
I think you said this like 12 times, but in summary, could you please explain how this is not a tax increase and instead only requires 50 votes? You're repealing, sorry.
Correct. In the current tax code, there is an exemption. It's a tax credit, excuse me, this is a tax credit, but it is a refundable tax credit. So in the current tax code in Title 68, with this provision, right now it says that the state of Oklahoma will pay any wind company 85%, 85 cents on the dollar, for any unused tax credits. So the state of Oklahoma is currently cutting a check to the tune of $70 million for those unused tax credits. This would change it, and instead of us cutting the check, they would still have those tax credits that they could apply to their tax liability. So it's a pure tax credit. They can apply it to their income tax liability. It stays that way, rather than the people of the state of Oklahoma having to cut a check for $70 million. So this would just remove the people, the state, from cutting that check of $70 million. It would just stay a true tax credit.
Do you have any concern that at some point in the future they might come back and extend the sunset on the credit past 2027 and therefore recoup all this money essentially?
This tax credit has been changed multiple times over the years. We've seen that on numerous occasions, not just this tax credit, but future tax credit, or past tax credits as well. There's always that possibility. Those who come after us might not be aware of the fight and the challenges that have happened once Senator Brecheen and I are gone. So we want to take care of this now instead of laying this on the feet of future legislators to try to correct.
I do want to add to this. When you hear a conversation about we'll add a tax to this, we want to address the refundable tax credit, but we're going to add a tax. That tax increase requires a 75% vote. What we are suggesting to get to $70 million is a 51% doable measure that if it passes out of the House, is not bound by Senate rules, the Senate pro tem only has to waive the rule. 51% of our colleagues agree, and Oklahomans paying attention, understanding how outrageous this is. We also talk about tricks that you might see. Tricks that you might see is to confuse individuals. You better be up to speed, wind speed, on terminology. Senator Dahm alluded to soft caps. The soft caps may sound like it's cutting it off, but unlike a hard cap, it allows that payout to continue. They still get the $500 to $750 million if they do a soft cap of 35, for example. That other 35 that they may not get paid out this year just gets paid out in year 11, 12, 13, 14. They still get the same amount. They just don't get it as quickly. So make sure, for the Oklahoman who is watching this, do not be deceived, because there's some magic tricks about to happen.
Senator, you talked about the average Oklahoman watching. You've surely heard, over the last couple of years, gross production taxes, oil and gas, the sort of the fervor to raise that on that industry, saying it's a wealthy industry. Sometimes people don't have the same reaction when it's talking about the wind industry. Does that surprise you? What would you say to somebody who is all for, raising GPT on oil and gas and facing this issue? What would you say to somebody who's thinking about that?
I think Senator Brecheen and I have been consistent in this. He can address it if he wants to. Our opposition is to raising taxes first when reforms haven't been addressed. I even acknowledged on the Senate floor the other day that maybe we do need to raise taxes, maybe so, but we haven't addressed the reforms first. We need to address all the reforms first, take care of all those things, do away with all the carve-outs, all the special deals, all the special exemptions, do that first, and then see if we need to go into the wallets of every taxpayer here in the state of Oklahoma. So yes, there are a lot of people that have been saying, well, just increase the GPT, the gross production on oil and gas, the largest industry in the state of Oklahoma. But why would we be advocating for raising taxes on certain industries, or even not even on industries, but on the individuals in the state of Oklahoma, just so that we can continue to cut a check for $70 million to mostly out-of-state companies? Our priorities are out of alignment if we're doing that. We should do away with this corporate payout, this corporate welfare, and eliminate the $70 million first, even before we consider raising a gross production on wind, or raising gross production on oil, or raising any other taxes. It is our belief that we should do away with these payouts, with these special deals first. So that's what my response would be. I don't know if Senator Brecheen has anything to add to that.
Tax law should be just, it should not be philanthropic. Tax law should be just, it should not be philanthropic. What we're dealing with here is benevolence that politicians are more than happy to do for the few, and it's at the expense of every Oklahoman. I think that concludes the press conference.
One more quick question, I'm so sorry.
One more.
There's been a sort of a statement that the wind industry believes this would result in lawsuits and other, it would maybe make local school bonds default or have their rating downgraded or something like that. Lawsuits and other adverse potential effects of this.
Smoke and mirrors. This is a prospective elimination of a tax credit. Starts at the head of the year, the calendar year 2019. There is a flashing yellow light. Talking with this discussion that Senator Dahm and I've had for years. He filed it first many years ago. I filed it in special session. It passed out of Finance Committee last year. There's some reason dealing with this preferential treatment gets set aside, and don't look over here. Let's look over here. We are purposely standing up saying, here is the solution. We're not going to allow our focus to be drifted. We're seasoned legislators at this point, and this must end.
But you don't think it'll result in a lawsuit, or you don't think there's a...
In all my discussions with legal minds in prepping for this, moving forward with elimination of the refundability characteristic, when you pronounce that it's at the head of the calendar year, and you give everyone fair warning, it puts us in tremendous legal footing if anyone tries to challenge it in court.
And I'll add on to that also. Again, we are not eliminating the tax credit. We're eliminating the refundability aspect of it. So they still get their tax credit. They still get 100% of that tax credit. They just no longer will be cut a check. So we're eliminating the refundability aspect of it. We're not eliminating the tax credit. We're just eliminating the refundability aspect of it. And one thing that I would say is, because I've heard this from other people, we actually, the legislature, not we, because we didn't vote, I didn't vote for it, but the legislature changed the deal, if you want to say it that way, changed the understanding with oil and gas, and has increased their taxes twice midstream during those time periods. When they were supposed to have a certain rate for a certain time period, the legislature has changed it twice. So if you're going to say that there's going to be lawsuits on wind for us doing it prospectively in the future, them keeping their tax credit, this isn't even a tax rate. This is a tax credit. They still get to keep it. We're just changing the aspect of it that's no longer refundable. I think we are on much surer footing with this than we were on increasing taxes on oil and gas partway through the deal multiple times over the last few years. So I think that we have much better of sure legal footing for this in all of our conversations with our legal staff and everything.
Thank you all.
Thank you all for being here. Appreciate you all.
Senators.